which is up on LarryElder.com. Stephen, you didn't mention drought. To what degree is this heat, this summer of drought, causing the problems? Or even if we have a drought, if we did the things that you recommend in your book, we wouldn't be having this conversation?
Well, yeah, I mean, now that there's a drought and everyone is really concerned about it. I mean, we have talks of a mega drought. You know, no one really knows whether it's just a garden variety drought or a mega drought. A lot of people using that terminology are, climate change activists who have a political agenda. So they think that the way we deal with this is to change the entire Earth's climate rather than just doing the simple things we need to do. The problem is, though, like with any problem, you wait until there's a severe problem, and it looks like we're having a severe drought. And there isn't enough water. Of course there's going to be rationing and things like that because we've waited too long, and these projects take a number of years to develop, expanding even the existing system of reservoirs we have. And so we need to jumpstart some of the projects that are in the works, but these things take time. So, after the last drought ended, when Jerry Brown signed the end of drought resolution 4 years ago, people like me were saying, okay, now's the time to plan for the next drought. So they didn't plan for the next drought, and now the drought's here, and our policymakers are like, well, there's nothing we can do, really. Mm-hmm. Well, no, we've got to hope Mother Nature bails us out again this time. It will rain again. It's a question of how long. So we have to tough it out and start jump-starting the projects that we need. And, start with some of the low-hanging fruit, right? Everyone, even the environmentalists, like water recycling, like they have in Orange County. And why not deal with some of the regulations that slow that down? There's a ready-to-go desalination plant in Huntington Beach, and the governor supports it, but he hasn't used a lot of political capital to deal with the Coastal Commission and some of the crazy regulations that are holding it up. How about reforming CEQA and the California Environmental Quality Act? There's some regulatory changes we can do, but some of these projects take time to build. What are you going to do? It's like with our highway congestion. You can't fix it tomorrow if we haven't been investing in highway construction for the last 30 years. It takes time.
Stephen, do you think climate change is a real thing?
Yes, I do, mm-hmm. But I'm not a climatologist, so it's just based on reading. But the point is that water abundance, a policy of water abundance, all climate change means in the context of water policy, as I see it, is it makes the problem more severe. So you need to do even more of the same things we're not doing now. So if it ends up not being true, well, then you've planned ahead. And if it ends up being a more severe problem than we thought, well, then we're that much further down the road in fixing the problem. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe that we need to focus on trying to change the globe's climate. I mean, most of the problem comes from India and China anyway. What we need to do is plan ahead so that our state is more resilient in dealing with a changing climate, and that means storing more water in wet years and building more recycling facilities and desal facilities and being focused on finding more water sources so we don't have to go into severe rationing.
Talk to me about water pricing and trading.
Yeah, right now I have in my book, I have a water trading decision tree. And so it's we're allowed to trade, buy and sell water in the state, but the state regulations make it so difficult that it's not done nearly the way as much as it should be. So, anything pricing, you're a market guy. If you price things correctly, if the water prices go up when things are scarce and down when they're not scarce, people will naturally conserve. And you'll sell it, farms will have incentive to sell it to urban users and vice versa, depending on market conditions. But this decision tree, in order to get approval to buy, sell, trade water, it's this enormous bureaucratic process that looks like one of those Rube Goldberg,
mm-hmm.
cartoons, if you remember those, all these contraptions that you have to go through to get approval. So if I want to sell a stock, I want to do it now. I don't want to wait, 2.5 years for the bureaucrats to decide it's okay. And the same thing with water. So we need to fix that problem. And I detail a lot of kind of boring sounding but important regulatory changes that can make a lot of the process easier and get water to its highest and best use.
Stephen, how much of this can be privatized?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, part of the problem, and I'm a market guy, and I believe in markets as much as possible. But years ago, our state basically turned our whole mountain and river system into a giant plumbing system, and those have been controlled largely by government, state governments, the federal government with the Central Valley Project, local water districts, local agencies. So it's one big government mess, and you know how hard it is to reform any form of government, let alone enormous conflicting forms of government. But we do need more market pressure, so we need more market pricing. Desalination is usually driven mainly by the private sector. So we need those projects don't need more money. Private investors are paying for them. We just need to remove some of the regulatory barriers. So the Carlsbad desalination plant in North San Diego County can meet 9% of the needs of a 3 million plus county. That's significant. And our almost identical plant in Huntington Beach is being held up by the Coastal Commission, which is worried about the impact on plankton, on floating whale food. It's crazy. The state can fix those things and let the private sector do more. There's the Cadiz Water Project in the Mojave, where private owners want to tap an aquifer the size of Rhode Island and feed it into the Colorado River aqueduct and send it to Southern California. And state officials have halted that. Dianne Feinstein, our U.S. Senator, has actively opposed it in Congress. And there's no reason for it. It's not going to harm the environment. There's just this kind of no-growth ideology. And that's the other thing, too. A lot of it's environmental, but there's a certain no-growth ideology. I mean, Tony Santa Barbara, didn't want to tap into the State Water Project. They didn't do so until the 90s when there was a drastic drought.
Steve, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, I want to ask you, what kind of impact has your book had in Sacramento? As I read it, sounds like common sense to me. Has it had an impact? I'm Larry Elder, Stephen Greenhut.